You're listening to a workshop from the Reach Australia National Conference in 2026. This workshop is Small Groups and Transformation. We pray this resource is fruitful for you and for your ministry. If you do find it helpful, can you give $5 to help support the people and the network behind it? Your gift helps us to make more gospel-centred resources available at churches across the nation.
The premise of this is to hear from 4 different people and then for you guys to ask questions. I always find it's really helpful to see what other people are doing and go, I wouldn't do it like that, or I'm not like them, or we can do it better, or actually, isn't this great? We're already doing it better than them. Awesome. So that's what the purpose of today is. We're going to hear from, I'll just get them stand up really quickly. We're going to hear from Ben Lattimore from EV Church. And I'm just calling that the bog standard growth groups, small groups, just get people into groups in the Word. Okay, I'm sure there's a little bit more to it here, but that's what we're going to be digging into. Scott Curtis from HBC, Hunter Bible Church, so just Newcastle, a little bit further. He's going to talk about Tuesday Feed, a program they started about 18 months ago when they launched into Garden Suburb with a new campus, a Tuesday night gathering which has food and the Bible. So it's not just the Bible, they actually do get fed as well. So he's going to talk about that. Then we're going to hear from Pete Bradbury. Pete's up in Brisbane, in Toowong, part of a church plan of about sort of 20 years old probably, or is it 16 years? Yeah, 20 plus years old. He's going to be talking about Life on Life. Life on Life is a program that came from a church in Atlanta by a guy called Randy Pope. A very unfortunate pastor's name, Randy Pope, but that's his name. Sorry, did you guys not pick that up as I said that? Anyway. But it's a great course they've been doing for years and years as a church, and Pete's going to talk about that. And then lastly, we're going to hear from Steve Gibbins. Steve Gibbins is at my church, which is a cracker church if you're in Sydney, Vine Church, Surrey Hills, and he's going to be talking about bringing people in together in sort of your main campus. So what do you do when people don't have homes? What do you do when you don't have enough leaders? What do you do when you haven't been investing in your small group ministry for a number of years? You do this. That bit was not recorded, hopefully, Steph. Good. Okay, so I'm going to pray, and they're going to get 10 minutes each, and then lots of questions. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for your word. Thanks that we've been able to sit in it today, and we pray that you might be changing us. Help us to be growing in faith and in repentance, we pray. And I pray for each of these guys that you might use them to fire us up for churches that see growth and change. Amen.
Thanks, Scott. Copy that. So this is kind of like the speed dating of small group ministries. I've got 10 minutes, and it was a Hail Mary from another guy. So anything that was good was Matt's. Anything that is bad was also Matt's. So it's the bog standard, the meat and potatoes brief, but I think to win your heart, capture the vision for the meat and potatoes is a really good way to do, or the familiar thing of growth groups is a really good way to grow people. And that comes from, I guess, a shared conviction that we all have, a vision of both growing deep disciples and also many, many, many disciples. And your small groups are a great way to do that. So, but the look of those small groups, you kind of have to ask the question, what is it that grows people? How do people develop and mature and establish in the faith? How are they transformed? And God's given us some means to do that. Obviously, the Sunday gathering is a really key one, a critical one to invest in. But where else can we get people around the word in community praying together? And so your small groups have a place in our life as a church that's a really unique, precious one if we want to see people grow together, which we do. But I wanted to put it to you that for that to happen, to leverage that, it's really critical to have clarity of purpose about what that group is doing. So there's all kinds of things you could do with that precious midweek window of time that your people are willing to give you. If your goal is to see life transformed, how will you use it? And so we've tried to harness just a really laser-sharp focus on spiritual maturity, so growth, transformation, as people sit around the Word. Of all the things you can accomplish in a couple of hours, what do you want to do? We want to get people in the Bible together, praying together, in community together. And obviously those three things work really well together. Prayer because we're dependent on God for transformation. Bible because it's His means of transforming us. It's living and active and changes us. But community because we grow as we speak the truth in love to one another. And We actually sharpen each other as we listen to each other, learn from each other. So there's a unique thing that small groups can do that I think is pretty hard to capture in other parts of our church life, where people stop and listen to another person. They have to think out loud and have people push back and question their thoughts. They learn from each other. They confess sin to each other. They pray for each other. So just to advocate for the precious value of a really clearly focused, purposed small group ministry. But the other thing they can do for us, which is precious and unique, I think, is cultivate this conviction of shared responsibility for one another's discipleship. So they lift our eyes from ourselves. You've got a group of people, hopefully, if the vision has been cast, coming to invest in others. And you also have a leader who's being raised up and given responsibility for the spiritual growth and health of a group of people. And when you kind of release someone, charge someone with responsibility, support them, train them, release them to do that, and then the ministry grows and you multiply that layer of leaders, you build this thing in our church which is really healthy for us as a life together, of a crowd of people who are deeply invested in other people's transformation and maturity. So that's a powerful thing, not just for the individual's growth, but for the health of a church, to have that layer of leaders deeply invested in people's maturity. So we call our midweek groups growth groups, just to emphasise that's the goal. We're there to grow. And obviously the Bible prayer community is done in such a way that it facilitates that. And so when you ask someone to lead a growth group, it's kind of clear what you're asking them to do. You're asking them to take responsibility for the spiritual growth and transformation of these people under God, under the pastoral ministry team, shared responsibility. But we want to have clarity about that and keep reinforcing that language of clarity. This is what your goal is. This is what you're being charged with. But the other wonderful thing about small group ministry is that they scale. So shared conviction of deep maturity, deep discipleship transformation, but also wide transformation, wide discipleship. And so whereas something like a one-to-one ministry, you might have a wonderful person investing in the life of another person, the small group Bible study kind of format gives you the context for an awesome, wonderful, thoughtful, loving, mature Christian person to have that influence kind of leveraged across a group of people, but also to leverage the one anothering, the shared investment of that shared conviction that we're actually here for each other to help you grow. I'm here to help you grow. You're here to help me grow. And so it does a thing for us in our community, and it can be a context where more and more leaders are raised up with safeguards in place, with shared leadership, shared responsibility to keep growing capacity to see other people come into a space where they're going to grow. So it's something that scales this transformational kind of environment. So what this has looked like, I'm told, I've only been here a few years, but a bunch of this goes back before me, but on the next slide, I think, a maturity pastor, this is what it looks like, looking after a bunch of groups. So I was in a church in Melbourne where I was kind of doing that at our scale, at our level. But then over time, as the number of groups grows, we brought in this layer of CL, which then on the next slide gives you capacity to, instead of investing in a bunch of group leaders, invest in a bunch of leaders who are investing in group leaders. So the thing scales, and you're raising up people to levels of responsibility to invest in other people's spiritual maturity. So again, doing a wonderful thing in the life of church, as well as for the individuals. And the next slide, scale again by... So at each point, you reach a limit, don't you? And we all feel this, of the number of people I can meaningfully invest in. So a structure like this is, it's a pretty boring org chart, of all the org charts that get around. But the beauty is about it is it scales. And so one person investing in a layer of leaders, who's investing in a layer of leaders, who's investing in people. And at each level, there's growth and responsibility and transformation happening. So we're now at a point on the next slide, still one full-time maturity pastor, 6 network leaders who then have a handful of community leaders each, who have a handful of growth group leaders under them. So you can get the one anothering happening across the life of church, shared responsibility. With a pastor, we all feel this, the limits of our bandwidth of the impact we can have. So this kind of structure enables you to raise up other people deploy them, release them in responsibility leadership to be seeing transformation happening outside of you, and you're just stoking the fire and investing in that layer of leadership. So we want deep discipleship, but also breadth, width, deep and wide. And it's good to note that those things can feel in tension. And I think often the way that a small group ministry might happen is the tension leans one way more than the other. And so it's good to just own that depth of discipleship and breadth of discipleship can feel like they're in tension. So you can get the context where there's a group that's so in love with their time together and each other, and they've built these really deep relationships that they can't bear the thought of sending people out to start a new group or welcoming others in. But there's actually something missing there in maturity, isn't there? Because we want people to have this shared vision of deep and wide. So yes, we want to go deep, but we want to keep making space. So we try and have a low bar for leadership. If every growth group leader needs to have a theology degree, you won't scale. So have a low bar of leadership so you can keep training people up, raising people up, growing capacity. But then we also need to envision leaders and people into that value so that we share that. Of course I'll make space. Of course I'll make space. Of course I'll go because I want to see more people have space where they can grow. And so I think there's another slide. Maybe it's just a heading. Yeah, balancing the tension. But the other piece of that is scaling, envisioning people to be able to welcome, and don't see past the fallacy of deep must mean small, because actually depth of discipleship sees Jesus' vision for a harvest and an ever-growing number of disciples. But then you've got to fill, so we need to grow the structure, we also need to fill the structure. So keeping eyes on people where they are in church life as they're coming in the pathway into church, as they're bumping out of groups. Are you okay? How did that happen? Can I help you find another group? The people who have just been kicking around church and for whatever reason never found their way into a group, trying to find them. So loving people. So someone needs to own that. So if you're a maturity or whatever name system you have, someone's got to own that, chasing down the people, and someone's got to own growing the structure, raising up leaders and having an eye to that. And I think one of the risks is often the maturity guys, as Bible people, we're deep people. And our growth group leaders are often the deep thinkers. And so we need to keep lifting their eyes and owning. We need to build scale as well. We need to build breadth. I think that's my time.
Right, well, you've actually got 1 minute and 25 seconds. So we've got time for one question. Great, Dave, you had your hands first up. Just hold on, can I just get a microphone to you just so that we can record it?
Thank you. Can you tell us, please, what your community leaders are doing and the network leaders are doing, and when you're recruiting them, how much time are you telling them that they'll have to devote to that?
Great question. So the community leader, time-wise, it's a similar commitment to growth group leading, but you just spend it differently. So you might be familiar with the leader pipeline thing of your time, the way you use your time changes, the skills you're going to develop change, and what you value changes. So
are they leading groups themselves?
Some of them do. So it's like all the things, right? It's a movable feast and it's malleable. But so a CL, a community leader, some of them will have 5 groups and not be leading one. Others will have 3 groups or 4 groups, one of which they're leading. And in time, they'll hopefully raise up someone to lead that group, and they'll step out and bring another group under their wing, kind of thing. What was the other thing you said?
What do they do?
What do they do? Oh, that's critical. Yeah, so their goal is to help the leaders see people transformed. And their levers for doing that are go and visit groups, get to know the guys. You're kind of you're sharing in pastoral responsibility for the 30, 40, 50 guys in this group. Sorry, I say guys because that's one of my hats is a network leader. So I've got 5 CLs under me who've got groups. So guys, go and visit the guys in your group. So when your group leader comes to you and says, oh, so-and-so's got this thing going on, if you have some relational knowledge of that person, that really helps. But visiting the group, giving them feedback, giving the leader feedback, encouraging the leader, sometimes it's just hard work. So caring for the leader, who cares, who leads the leader? Well, the CL does in this case. So caring for them, knowing their life, their marriage, their kids, and trying to get to know the people in the groups, trying to help them, give them feedback and reflect, how can I make this a place where people are changed, transformed?
Great. Can you guys give Ben a bit of appreciation? We're going to flick across to Scott and Hunter Bible Church, and we're going to be thinking about Tuesday feed.
Thanks, Scotty. So we've been running a program called Tuesday Feed, which is a little bit more in the in-community space or the membership space. It's actually a variation of our membership course that we've been running. But a big reason we're talking about it is because one of our goals is actually to transform people in that and prepare them for small groups as they come into the life of HBC. So it's primarily aimed at helping Christians join church well and to join HBC well, but we found we're getting non-Christians who come along to it, and some of our members will come along to it because we've been hammering it so hard across church. I'm just going to explain a little bit about what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, and then some of the strengths and learnings and challenges that we've had with it. So it's, funnily enough, it runs on a Tuesday night and it's got food. It runs 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. And kids and whole families are invited to come along. We have a kids program alongside of it, and I'll take you through a night in a bit. It runs every night of school term. So if you came along to church on Sunday, you would be invited to the Tuesday Feed to come and hang out with us on Tuesday night. And because we've done that, we've started running our mission course, our life series, on the Tuesday night at the exact same time as well, so that you've got the option to go to either, and we have a shared dinner together. So on a typical night, we'd have somewhere, for the Tuesday Feed part of the night, we'd have somewhere between 40 or 50 new people who'd come along. And so you'd rock up a bit before 6 p.m, you'd be welcomed by one of the team, you get a name tag in the foyer, and then the team would introduce you with some of the other people around. We'd want to connect you in with conversation straight away. You're encouraged to make yourself at home and grab a cold drink or a tea or coffee or something like that. And then at about 6:05 p.m, the host gets up and welcomes people both for the Tuesday Feed and the Life Series, gives some direction for how the night's going to work. We'll introduce the dinner and the process and all the different dietary requirements and all that kind of thing. We'll give people a discussion question, it's just a low-key, what's one of your hobbies, chat about what's something you could talk about for hours, just a casual discussion question. And then we'll say grace. And then we have dinner at tables, and that can be anywhere from a table of 6 to 12 people. And then at around 6:45, 6:50, someone will get up again and go, all right, it's the time of the night where we're going to head off and do our different things. So the life people will head out. If you've got kids, we'd love for you to check them in. They're going to do some craft, play some games. We'll put on a movie. And then the Tuesday Feed, the people who are thinking about joining HBC, you guys will stick around here. And then for the Tuesday Feed aspect of that night, we'll actually rotate and interview one of our pastors from church. So different pastors on different nights. Then after we've interviewed one of the pastors, there's actually a run sheet, a fair few, you can actually see through the night if you want to flick to that on the slide. After we interview one of the pastors, then either Greg or myself will give about a 15-minute talk. And then over the term, we actually work our way through the book of Colossians. I'll talk a bit about why we do that. And then after the talk, we have a Bible study where we want people to actually dig into the same passage that the talk was on. And then we finish the night by 8 o'clock with about 15 minutes of Q&A. No such thing as a dumb question. It can be from the Bible or anything about church. For people who are interested in kind of joining church. So that's a little bit of what it looks like and what we're doing. In terms of why we're doing that, a membership course, the reason we set up any membership course across church is because we want to shepherd people the moment they come in and show them what we think God's agenda is for their life. And so we invite people to our various membership courses so we can shepherd them. But we're wanting people throughout any of our courses to make 4 conscious decisions. And one is to commit to growing in their love for Jesus, first and foremost. Then next, to commit to the people of God. And then next, to commit to being an active partnership in the body of Christ with us at this local church and submit to us as their leaders, their shepherds. So they're the 4 things that we're wanting, conscious decisions we're wanting people to make over it. Now, the reason why we started the Tuesday feed was we're having a particular challenge. There was something happening in our context that kind of meant we morphed our membership course into what is the Tuesday feed now. Because over the last couple of years at HBC, we were finding that we were getting less people join us with an evangelical heritage. That was going completely down. We were getting loads of non-Christians who were coming through Life and our follow-up establishment course following on from Life. We're getting loads of disgruntled Christians, loads of people who had church in their past but hadn't been to church since pre-COVID, was a common story. And we've been getting loads of charismatic Christians who weren't used to kind of the expository Bible studies that we'll tend to work through throughout church. And so that meant as people were coming into church, their stickiness in small groups was actually a little bit hard. We're finding that a bit of a challenge. The other thing that people were finding, they were highly relational, and the idea of doing a membership course, we'd love for you to do this for 3 or 4 weeks, was feeling like a box to tick for a lot of people. And so there was just a bit of, in our sin and our pride, just a bit of immediate pushback to any kind of sense of something on the sausage factory pathway. We're also finding that people, as they joined church, were just slower to commit to a bunch of things, a bit more consumeristic in a few things. And so we implemented the Tuesday feed so we could move much more slowly with people and be much more relational. We deliberately called it the Tuesday feed to make it obvious, but also somewhat bogan, because that's who we are. And we wanted a large part of the night to therefore be relational, and so we do just hang out and have dinner for 45 minutes to an hour. We don't ask people to commit to the whole thing when we invite them. So we'll say, come along, come to as much as you can. We'd love for you to make the whole thing if you can. Like, we're going to work our way through a whole book of the Bible, so you will miss out on some weeks. But if you can't make some nights, that's all right. That's totally fine. Just come along when you can. We've actually found that it's started to become a front door for us. So we're getting people that will come along and be invited by others to the Tuesday feed before they step into church on a Sunday, which has been a learning that we didn't kind of anticipate. And then the reason that we do the pastoral interview up the front and even in Q&A is so that people get to know their shepherds very quickly. We do the Bible talk and the study and the Q&A to help shepherd them to have a great love for God's word. So we're wanting people to see our passion for that and to catch that as they come in. And we also, the reason we open up Colossians and do a study is to move people from being consumers to contributors. So every talk has 3 main ingredients. We'll do the exegesis. We'll apply God's word to the Christian life and how that's different to the world we live in. And then we also have a moment where we tell people what it'll mean to be part of our church. And we'll be very explicit about what it looks like to be on mission with us, that you'll be called to repentance, that this will be an uncomfortable church to be part of. If you're here with us long enough, we will sin against you, then we'll ask you to forgive. All those things we want to say up front, as well as some of our key doctrines that we teach. And so working through Colossians helps us. Like, there's a stack of things in terms of God's sovereignty and the supremacy of Christ and heaven and hell and the work of Christ on the cross and his resurrection and complementarianism and heaps of things around work and doctrine of family. And so we're being very deliberate about those kind of things, to the point that we're 3 weeks in, and a lady named Deb said last week, "Oh, this is great, like what you're doing here." She's pretty savvy. She's like, we're getting to know you as a church and the pastors, but you're really getting to know us as well. But she's loved how we're laying who we are as a church on the table. She said it's kind of like speed dating, like in terms of getting to know people quickly and who we are. And she's already, after 3 weeks of coming, said, "Can I now help with dinner?" Like, she wants to contribute into the life of that. And so that's been some of the strengths. Like, it's not a silver bullet, but some of the strengths have been the relational aspect to it, building relationships with some of the pastors quickly. And we've found that even though it is a long process, people love coming along because it's not the box to tick. And by the end of it, people are asking to serve rather than us asking them. A few of the challenges very quickly, I think there is a critical mass component, so we haven't rolled it out at one of our other campuses yet. People, you can, at the Bible study part, you can ask a question and then someone will respond with a sermon for the whole time. Just depends on who you've got in the room. And 8 to 10 weeks is still not enough time to get people prepared for small groups. But that's my time.
Great. We've probably got time for one question. Great. And you got more questions afterwards as well.
If someone turns up, say, week 5 of a term to church, do you invite them that week or do you wait until the start of a new term?
We treat everyone as individuals. So it will depend based on how we think they're prepared in terms of joining church, how eager they are. Roughly, I think of a term, we'd love people to do 4 or 5 weeks. So in our other membership course, we run that for 3 weeks. And if people come to 2 weeks of that, we're going and we have a good assessment of them, we're going, okay, we're happy for you to move into a small group, join church, that kind of thing. But there will be some people who come along who we're a bit more nervous about that will encourage to come back the next term. So it just depends on the people.
But you're also running it kind of continuously. So I could rock up to church in week 5 and I could come to a night on in community and then go into on mission. You're just kind of repeating the 5-week cycle over and over again for the whole year.
Yeah, well, the Tuesday feed's 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
Yeah,
Or the 10-week cycle. Yep.
Yeah, so we could just keep working our way through Colossians. And we do find people go, oh, this has been so good, I missed the start. Can we come back and do the start? And we're happy for them to go into a small group, but they want to keep coming to the Tuesday feed. So
that's awesome. Can you give Scott appreciation? Excellent. Now we're going to hear from Pete Bradbury, Cross Community.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, fellas. I'm going to be talking about something pretty specific in the small group ministry space, and I just want to up front say that we in our church see this as very complementary to the types of small group and activities these guys have already spoken about. We're paying attention to these things as well, but we're also sort of seeing a missing piece in this space that we're trying to target. So I think this is complementary to what these guys have already said. But we've noticed in our small groups, and you might have noticed as well, that small groups are often good at producing what I would call smarties. So smarties I define as people who are knowledgeable, smarties, and committed. Okay? And that's great. We love people who are knowledgeable and know their Bibles well. We love people who are committed. It's great in our churches with people who are turning up to their small groups, coming to church regularly. But we've wondered if it would be possible to be producing people who are more like M&Ms. Okay? Because we all know Smarties are great, but M&Ms are better. Now, yeah, that might be the only thing you agree with, but I'm glad we're... So we would say M&Ms are mature and multiplying. Okay, mature and multiplying. And I put to you that if we're going to reach Australia, we need more M&Ms, more labourers for the harvest. So we need not just disciples, but disciple makers. People to lead and pastor our churches, lay leaders to serve and use their gifts to make Jesus known. So I'm going to talk about this model of small group ministry that has a specific aim of raising up lifetime labourers for the harvest. Okay, lifetime labourers for the harvest. And we call that life-on-life discipleship. I want to say up front that this is slow, it's hard, and it's messy. And it doesn't work for everyone and every stage of life. Okay, so it's not going to be your sort of model for small groups across the board. Well, I'd suggest you don't use it that way. But I personally think it's the best way to help people grow in maturity and to multiply their ministry impact for a lifetime. Just want to start by considering a little bit Jesus' model for ministry, like how he did ministry. We heard earlier from Herdy that Jesus said to make disciples of all nations, that he said to be my witnesses to the ends of the earth. And that 11 disciples that he gave that commission to, we see that pictured in Revelation of people from every tongue and tribe and nation around the throne. And so Jesus intends to reach all nations. But I think we also want to pay attention to the question of, well, how did Jesus himself model ministry? Like, what did he do to raise up disciples, to disciple those men? Firstly, I'd say he was pretty upfront with his plan. So we read in all the Gospels that Jesus said, "Come follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." So the model was to follow him, but a really clear vision. I'll make you fishers of men. In Mark chapter 3, after spending the night praying, Jesus calls the 12 to be his disciples. And he calls them, it's interesting, he calls them to be with him so that they can be sent out. So it's really purposeful and intentional in the way that he's thinking through his ministry. And so when we get to Matthew 28 and Jesus then tells these men, go make disciples of all nations, how do you think those disciples understood that command that he was giving them? I think very much they probably understood it to be, well, you guys, what I've done with you, do that with others. Okay, make disciples. So Jesus modelled investing deeply in a few lives for the purpose of reaching many. Okay, and I think if we read Acts, you see particularly in the ministry of Barnabas and Paul, that similar model for ministry. I just want to pause and ask you to consider in your own life, has someone really intentionally come alongside you and invested in your life and your ministry? I would imagine for a lot of people in this room, the answer would be yes. And you'd probably also say that that has had a pretty significant impact for you, both in maturity and in terms of multiplication. It's interesting, the stats are really clear on this, and we don't know the causation, or I can't remember that other C word, correlation, but it's very common for ministry workers, employed ministry workers, that they've had someone invest deeply in their life. That's very, very common. Now, of course, there's some very unique things about Jesus' ministry. He's the saviour of the world, which we're not going to replicate. And also, it's interesting, like, we've got to think about his context. So there's even at that time, being a rabbi, there was a bit of a context for having people following you and learning from you and that sort of thing. So that ministry in that first century context in Palestine, very vastly different to pastoring in 21st century Australia. So we can't sort of replicate what he did. Yet I wonder, should we be more mindful of Jesus' model for ministry and how that might impact our small group ministries? And so I'm going to get to it now. What I'm going to suggest is a type of small group that emphasises not just discipling our people, but raising up disciple makers. And so the definition, it's been on the screen for a little while, but it's labouring deeply in the lives of a few with the intention of imparting the gospel in such a way as to see them become mature and multiplying followers of Jesus. So that's what we're aiming to do in this ministry. Now, the context for our church, I think, is helpful for you to understand. We have many young adults in our church, and a large number of them are new Christians. Right? So it's super exciting, but that's actually a great context for this type of ministry model. They have a lifetime ahead to live for Jesus. And so a key way we establish them and equip them to do that in their workplaces, in their families, and in their churches is through this. So life on life discipleship groups, I think I've got a slide with just some of the characteristics, and so I'll just sort of work through those. Firstly, we tend to find 3 to 5 people in the group, including the leader, so 3 others and the leader. Now this is just sort of paying attention to the fact that you are being very intentional, and it's sort of, there's a number, just logistical, how many people you can be really intentional with. We'd suggest single-sex groups, and we look at them for being up to 3 years. We think that that's a pretty good amount of time to really help someone grow in maturity, be established, and be able to then multiply. And for us, multiplying would be maybe doing the same thing with others, but often it's multiplying in terms of just being in a position to be a leader of some sort in the church into the future. Okay. We would say in that as well, it's just important for everyone to commit 1 year at a time rather than all 3 years up front. I've got some notes on some of that in the resources if you want more on that. And an interesting thing, so in most small group contexts, it's sort of an open invite generally, but in this we just very intentionally, the leader actually selects who's going to be in the group rather than sort of opening the groups up, and the leader casts the vision. So following that Jesus model, a little bit of come follow me and make you fishers of men. So there's clear expectations that the leader is setting of sort of what the group's going to look like. So the next couple of points look at, well, how do we try to build maturity in these groups? And the two things really are deep in God's word and deep in each other's lives. So deep in God's word, in these groups, we get the members to prepare beforehand. And so during the week, it's an hour, 90 minutes of reading and thought and sort of wrestling with scriptures and maybe some other resources and stuff, to then come to the group time, less of a sort of make sure we've comprehended it, but actually how is this applying to our lives? I just find that makes a huge difference. I know that's a high bar to set, but if people come having read and thought through the passages beforehand, that group time then becomes a lot more sort of massaging those truths into our lives. And deep in each other's lives. So I think Jesus models this so clearly with his disciples. Like, there's so many times where something happens and because of it, Jesus picks something up with the disciples and is able to minister to a certain situation. So those discussions like who's the greatest, those sort of things, like because Jesus is there with them, that's a ministry opportunity. So deep in each other's lives as well, which means spending time together, not just in the group time. Am I getting the time wrap up here? Okay. Well, you guys don't care about multiplying, so we can leave it. The last one is, well, how do we help people to multiply? And we would say equipping. Think about how our churches equip people. I think we're getting a lot better about this, but often it's sort of explain something, teach people, and say, go do it. Okay, but we need more than just that. I flew down in the plane this morning. Imagine if the pilot had been given the manual and said, okay, here's all you need to know about flying the plane. Now go fly the plane. All right, no one's getting in that plane. Need more than that. A pilot's going to have hours of watching someone else do it, being taught, supported in it. Then he's going to do it, and someone's going to sit and watch and make sure. But the same part of all parts of Christian life. So I suggest if people are going to be equipped to read the Bible for themselves, equipped on what it looks like to repent and forgive, equipped for work, for marriage, for serving in ministry, we need more than just being told what to do and told go do it. We need to be shown how to do it and supported in it. Again, Jesus, in sending out the 72, models that. So this is slow, it's hard, and it's messy. Jesus says, go make disciples, and he, the one who has all authority, says that he'll be with us always.
Appreciate Pete. We got time for one question.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to tease people for the latter half. I've got a question. It's an aside to your sort of larger sort of transformation or small group ministry. It's not the whole thing. In terms of percentages, like what does that look like? Is 30% of people in life doing life on life over that sort of 3 years? 70% in small groups?
Yeah. So in our young adult population, is say 70%.
Yep.
In other aspects of the church, 10%.
Yep. Gotcha. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Pete, Steve's going to come up now and talk about All In. Is that what it's called?
All In or Central, or you can help us come up with a name.
Yep.
I'm going to speak about a variation of what we've come to know as small groups, and for us, namely, that it's not small. So what I'm going to speak to you about today is a group. It's in our context how we're seeking to achieve the purposes of the small group with the position that we're in. And what I'm hoping to speak about today is the how we got there, why we're there, the background, what it looks like. So give you a little bit of a insight into how we use our time together, and then finish with the things that we've learned. Both the feedback we're getting from people and things we've had to change, but also things that I think are working well. So first of all, how we got here. So I've joined Vine Church team at the start of the year, and at the start of the year, 2 of our community group leaders, or sets of community group leaders, let us know that they weren't going to be leading that year. And the group of, say, 10 or so people in each of those groups were desiring to stay together, but no longer with a leader. And a number of things contributed to this, but we weren't able to parachute in a leader for those groups. So what we decided to do was to bring both of those groups together, along with a bunch of other people who had just joined the church at the start of the year, together into a central group, or what did Scott call it? All In. All In. It's not all in because not everyone's in. We've still got other small groups, but these groups, it's a bigger group. So on paper, there were about 30 people in this small group. So not that small. And we brought us all together with the intention, we were also kind of making it up as we were going. The way the politicians described the NDIS, building the plane as you were flying it. And the first term, so we've learned some things. I hope to share that with you at the end. So that's the background, how we got there. Is a little bit out of necessity. What it looks like, we've got some photos. So first of all, I'll show you a map. At Vine Church, we're close to the city, and this is a map of the building. The green, we've got where we have dinner out in the garden foyer, and then the 3 green groups are broken up into the smaller discussion groups. That's our group, just using that part of the church. And at the same time, there's another 3 groups also using the space. They're a little bit separate to us, at least at this stage. We're all just there together and we see one another. But at the moment, I'm mainly going to talk to you about the green group, All In, big group. Now, what we do, we get together at 7 o'clock. We have dinner together. So we've got a photo now of the team preparing dinner. This is just within our community group. Now we're up to probably 35 people on paper, and on any given night, maybe 25 people come. So it's serving dinner for 25 people, and we have a roster system within our group. Each of the members serving dinner on that particular night for 25 people. The church building that we've got has good facilities to enable that to happen, and that they might arrive an hour early. So we begin with dinner at 7 o'clock and break up into 4 tables of 6, roughly. And at that point, we encourage people to sit wherever they like. They might like to sit with a group of people who they're getting to know because they're forming deeper connections, and that's okay. They also might like to sit with someone who they haven't sat with before and join another table. So we leave that with them, and that's probably part of this change management, because we've brought people out of what they were used to, only having 6 or 8 people to relate to on any given night, to quite a large number. So we have dinner together until 7:30. We break at 7:30 for an all-in kind of time. That's normally an encouragement, perhaps a reminder of why we're gathering together, the importance of community groups. We might highlight a mission partner and pray for them, or if it's been someone's birthday during the week, we'll ask them what they're thankful for that year and pray for them. So just trying to build a little bit of community in that wider group setting. We'll break from dinner in the garden foyer and then move into different discussion groups. So if we go back to the map, that might be helpful. Move into different discussion groups. Around 7:40 through to 8:45, Bible study and prayer, and there's 3 discussion group leaders within this large group. They'll work their way through the Bible study and then break up into smaller groups to pray if that's what they'd like to do, or they'll work it out on any particular week. And then finish by 9. So that's the group, and that's what it looks like. What we've learned, at the start of the year, we didn't have time for the change management things that needed to take place. And there were people that were surprised by this group that they'd been placed into. They were looking forward to another year of a smaller number of people to relate to and to go deep with. They'd really valued their group from the previous year, and so this group was a disappointment. And even on the first night, we went around the room and we asked for people, what was your highlight from the group last year? And one person said it was the intimacy that we got from the group, and so I'm really missing that now as she looked around the room. Interestingly, there were 2 Americans with us, exchange students, and they said, I don't know if it was in response to what she had said, but they'd said, this is the smallest group I've ever been a part of. So that was interesting. When we were doing the discussion groups, at the start of the year, what we did, because we were trying to get people to mix amongst a larger number of people. So not only over meals, though we gave people permission to sit with those that they wanted to sit with, but also in the study time. And so what we were doing at 7:40 when we were breaking into Bible studies, we would say, go and join a circle, form a circle, and it'll be different each week. And people gave us their feedback after term 1 to say they'd prefer to have regular groups of people, so they know who they're going to be talking with, they're familiar with each other and the things that they'd been discussing in previous weeks and as they were sharing, and even in prayer as well. So that was something that we learned and changed for term 2. What did work well is the breadth of connections that came out of that group, so and friendships that perhaps formed that perhaps wouldn't have in another group. So there was just a larger number of people that you can find interests and likes with and form friendships. And on a Sunday night, as they looked across the room at church, there's a potential that they know 20 people there more intimately. So that helped them to feel connected on a Sunday night. And it was also, what has happened is it's been a really easy onboard for people. So we get a lot of people who are joining the church throughout the year, and they're interested, they've heard of these community groups, they'd like to be a part of one. And I find it difficult to place them in other people's groups and disrupt them if they're 10 and here's another person, but you've just got started and we're halfway through the term. So we're a little bit of a reservoir, people getting fed into, and because we're a larger group, we can absorb that a little bit more. We're on 35 on paper, what's another one? So it's a little bit like that. And the other thing that's been helpful is there's potential for scaling. So at the moment, we've got the 3 discussion groups. It wouldn't be much for us to add a 4th discussion group. We'd need another discussion group leader, but we could form another group. We would start to run into a little bit of trouble with the space as to where we find them, but I'm sure we can work out another area in the church there and keep building from there. So it's not would you come in and lead a group? We need you to organise rosters and get mission partner prayer updates and follow people up and things like this. It's really just, could you lead the discussion on that night? So there's some of the things we've learned.
Okay. Thanks heaps, Steve. We've got time for one question before I ask the other guys to come up and we'll hear from a few others. Kyle?
Thanks. Could you help me understand you touched on it, I think, at the end there a little bit, the difference between a discussion group leader and a normal growth group leader?
Yeah, the discussion group leader is primarily going to lead the Bible study time. So I'm not relying on them in all of the other aspects of bringing a community group together. Their responsibility in all of the other things that go into running a community group aren't as much there. There's some things there, so pastoral care issues that come up in their group, they're the ones who are going to know about it because the group's shared it with them more likely, but there's room for them to pass that on to the community group leader to then go and do something with. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get you to turn to the person next to you and ask them what's maybe a question you've got, what's something that you're wondering about what's been said, or perhaps you might want to say which one of the four are you sort of most gravitating to? If you were to vote in a poll, which one would you want to be going to on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday night? Okay? Okay, come on up, guys. Trying to get some tension.
So what did you leave with? If you're looking for tension and conflict, you got it disappointed? Or?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I did say that. Now we do have 3 microphones. So if you guys, I'll roam around so we can get the record. And yeah, do create some tension. And fight for it in some ways. Like, again, so
we do these models as well, mate.
What's that? I know you do. That's what I'm saying. We lose a microphone.
Yeah, one thing like that.
Oh, okay.
Man, I just realised we had a chat. I called you about the deaf ministry earlier in the year. So, Benny and it's exploding. It's crazy. Yeah. So we're now translating 3 kids' ministries and there's because the school in the area is a deaf.
I'm going to start by saying, obviously we want to do it as Jesus did. But you guys aren't about obedience, you're about Christ. Okay, this is good. This is a key part of Reach Straight Conference. You learn just as much from the people around you and hearing from their experiences and hearing from their churches. So keep those conversations going over dinner tonight. But we have got about 20 minutes or so to ask these guys questions. So, Dave, it's good that you're first every time, but I'm going to give another person a chance to get a question who hasn't asked a question.
All right. I want to draw a few things. I heard something somewhere else in a mission space. It's taking like more than 12 months for non-Christians to become Christians, and then more than 12 months for them to be able to join a group. And you said something similar. 8 to 12 weeks, Scott, not long enough to join growth groups. And then Steve, you're saying we need to do this because we didn't have leaders, but you do have discussion group leaders. So I'm interested, are growth groups for Christians or are they for mature Christians? And are growth group leaders teachers or are they just fellow Christians? So there's a double barrel, but yeah.
Or why aren't you guys doing it like Jesus did?
Jesus had 12 disciples, so I'm advocating for a group size of 12. I'm trying to remember how many barrels that question had. Yeah. I think just to throw a thought in, get the ball rolling. I'll give you guys time to think, help in that way. What is a growth group leader? Like, yeah, they're a Christian who's aspiring to help others grow, in the same way as you'd want the group members to be. keen to hear from Scott about what you're looking for to confidently put someone in a group. But if someone's going into a group without that vision of this is what we're here for, those kind of shared convictions, it's going to be hard. And I've walking with a group at the moment where we're not all playing in the same game, and it's like you're trying to play netball and you're playing soccer, and this is really hard. And yet, want to keep the bar low of what a growth group leader is, so the thing can keep growing and you can keep making more space. But I think the best, what we're trying to advocate for with our growth group leaders is the best kind of teaching is actually facilitating discussion, and you just get better and better at facilitating that well. But you're trying to get people's eyes in the text, get them noticing things, get them talking to each other, thinking out loud, listening to each other. So someone doesn't have to be a super mature Christian to engage in that task. But you want to have a leader who can more and more, I think start with a low bar, press print on the prepared study, read out the questions, but from there build that skill in facilitating really well and helping people engage with the word.
Just before you come to yours, Scott, then, for us, I think there is a difference. The person who's just become a Christian, though they're a Christian, I wouldn't throw the community group leading to them. So there's something about being a Christian versus being a community group leader. I think there's something there. And in our context, so the other thing we were doing when we were throwing from dinner to the group, sit wherever you like, the other thing we were doing was I'd lead one of those groups. Christine, who's the other community group leader, would lead the other group. And the third group, we said, and someone in that group pick up the discussion. And that group, and that was one of the reasons they said, actually, that's not working for us. We're not, someone's not stepping up to doing this. And so there was a bit of an indication as to whether people were able to be not even a discussion group leader versus the community group leader. So we were having trouble finding people to be a community group leader. One of the things that is a requirement for us, for a community group leader, is that they'd be there. And in our context, people being away with work, for some of them, they'll be away 50% of the time. And so that they might... it makes it difficult for them to step up into leader, but maybe discussion group leader they might.
I'm in one of those blue groups, and I think I've been to Bible community group 4 times. I mean, Steve would be able to tell you because they mark the roll, and I think I've been 4 times this year. So,
what a bad member!
I know, I'm a terrible member. So mission, who are groups for, and leaders. The mission thing, we've had people become Christians at Life, go amazing, and within a term they're in a growth group and they're great. So I think God can transform people that quickly and hook into a growth group very quickly. We are finding though there's lots of people who just need time to process. So we've had a guy named Richard that was our youth pastor, Pete Monday's neighbour. He's a member of the Knights, so I've taken a hit to the team and gone to a few Knights games with him for evangelism purposes. But he's been to Life twice, Christianity Explorer. He's still not yet a Christian. He still just hasn't wanted to go over the line, but he's coming every Tuesday. And so we're wanting to present the gospel to him as clear as we can, which we think Life and, like we call it Mortal Life, rather than move him to a growth group. But we might move him through and into a growth group. Who are groups for then? That raises a question. Non-Christians, Christians, mature Christians, immature. I think there's no theological answer to that, and actually we have freedom to choose. But the thing would be to be clear about what you're going to do in the life of your church. So for us, groups are we are wanting them mostly for Christians, immature and mature. But partly that's because of the leadership skills and the leadership skills it takes to be able to lead a group that has non-Christians, immature Christians and Christians in it. So trying to make it easier on the leaders because of the volunteer capacity that we have in terms of them. But I've got a non-Christian in my growth group. And so I think we make exceptions to that, depends on the person. But I think having clarity in your church and then how you're going to train your leaders
is what's helpful. In terms of then leaders, I think a theology of Christian leadership here, anyone who's teaching the Bible and responsible for someone else, I think is shepherding. Now, I know that we disagree a little bit here, and I'm happy to have more conflict, Ben. This was supposed to be a conflict seminar. So,
get angry.
but I would be nuanced in that I don't think it's a light switch. I think there's a dial. So I think Greg Lee, under Jesus, holds the most responsibility as a shepherd of Hunter Bible Church in a plurality of leadership with our elders. But anyone who takes on any leadership responsibility to teach and pray for someone else, I think we would want to see a 1 Timothy 3 likeness happening and growth there before we put them in. But I think we want to keep the bar low in terms of skills at the same time. But I'd see it more as a dial rather than a light switch.
Hang on, can I have a right to reply to that, sir? I think you just straw-manned me a little bit, Scott. So to clarify, low bar, not in terms of character, Christian, like love of Jesus, in terms of like, have they done PTC, are they theology trained, are they the A grade teacher? Like, 'cause how many of us have a church full of those unicorn perfect people, but we want to take people where they are and train them, grow them, invest in them, so that maybe one day they are, and instead of having 5 of them, we have dozens of them, so we can keep making capacity for more and more. Is that okay?
That's fine. I have heard where, growth group leaders are not pastors, and I think that's what you guys are getting at, and I agree with that.
Yeah, so 1 Peter 5, there's a great shepherd and there's shepherds under him, and so there's layers of shepherding responsibility, and I think, we want to advocate for that. Like, you are, set the bar high in the sense of you are taking responsibility for these people, and you're now responsible to your leaders, and you're responsible to God for how you, but in terms of what we're expecting of them, in terms of their skills, we want to shepherd and help and nourish, cultivate it.
Amen.
We've got a question down here.
Yeah, just quickly, with your churches and demographics, are you setting up growth groups for particular demographics, or are you doing intergenerational ministry in your growth groups? How does that look for you?
We have a few demographic-based ones in terms of like young mums who are free during the day. We put like the kids program alongside a lot of our women's growth group that will meet at church, and then we have a young adults. We've got a uni church congregation, and so we have a whole congregation that's very mono-demographic. But then in our other family services, we're open for diversity. But I would say. We like the idea of diversity in our churches, but people gravitate towards similar demographics. And so there's a dance there that I think we wrestle with. Yep.
We have a men's group and a women's group. Then beyond that, we aim for congregation. There's 3 congregations. Sometimes we don't get that, but we aim for that. We also aim for location because we want to reduce as many barriers as possible for people to be able to come and go, and crossing the city sometimes will stop that. And we also just when they're available, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, which night are you free? And those 3 together typically will form, there's 1 or 2 groups that they could possibly go into. We have had a couple of people who are new to church and they've said, I want, maybe they're a little bit older, and they've said, I'd like to go into a group that has older people in it, please. And the community group leaders, in response to attempting to meet that request, said, are we becoming the old person's group? And didn't like it. So it's a little bit of a balance.
We'll come back to that.
Peter, this is for you. In terms of having kind of the smaller group, do you still also have growth groups, Bible study groups, and do you expect the people who are in a smaller intentional group to also be in a bigger group?
Yeah, good question. We do, like, our meat and potatoes is growth groups and follow quite a similar model to Ben. And so these groups are, it's sort of optional for particularly some of our young adults. they love the intentionality of the small group, but really enjoy the fellowship of the larger group. We encourage everyone to be in one or the other, some are in both.
Yeah, hey. With your groups, I'm guessing that all of you, to some degree, the goal is to see transformation happening in people's lives. How do you measure whether that's happening? Because it's easy to measure attendance and stuff like that. But what things are you looking at to see if the groups are actually seeing transformation happen?
I mean, a key tool we use is, we call it 3 questions worksheet, but it's like the where, now, how, and we get the group members to fill that out every quarter, and it just sort of goes through conviction, character, competence, and sort of identifies areas for growth, but also in that you just got a feedback loop of where they feel like they're growing, and I think the leaders paying attention to that as well.
So you give that to the leaders and they then report back to you, is that how it works?
So that's the leaders give it to their group members, and then we've got metrics that the leader feeds back. Yeah.
I think it's a really good question, and it's a hard one to answer because, any of the instruments we have to measure maturity are pretty blunt. But I think, I don't know. So I don't know if I have an answer. But I think I probably want to more advocate for what's the CL doing? He's trying to help the growth group leader. So I keep saying he because that's my particular world. He's trying to help the growth group leader think about how can this person grow from where they are. What do you need to help that person grow? Is there something I can do to help? How do you see this thing in their life at the moment as a discipleship opportunity? So I guess, all for the outcome question, it's just hard to measure, isn't it? If someone's got an answer, can you hear it? But from where you are now, how can I help you grow?
Greg mentioned a few of those ones for the church-wide maturity, but for community groups or immaturity, that focus area, 3 things I'm probably looking at more often are percentage of the church in a small group. We heard that might not be 100%, and attendance percentage, and then number of leaders. They're 3 things I'm probably looking at most of all.
Yeah, I was coaching a leader the other day, and he ran through our attendance stats of people for 5 years at small groups and church, and then asked AI to kind of, with a few prompts, assess kind of maturity and regularity, and it amazingly, was able to look at individual people and see patterns and behaviours. So, there's something that AI can do. You've got to make sure you de-identify. And put it in a closed environment, all those sorts of things. But I thought that was quite a helpful way of modelling it. Scott, have you, these guys have all got playbooks, they've all got those sorts of things. Are you guys able to kind of share any kind of resources that you have in terms of just metric sheets and things that you're regularly measuring?
Yeah, we have the yearly survey that we're looking for things in maturity. I can share that.
So you guys annually survey
our
percentage of
Yeah, so we'll send it to everyone. And we have a maturity score, like growing in your love of God, putting off sin, that we're looking at those things, but that's a church-wide thing. And then it's through the CLs or the growth group team leader that we're thinking about every individual then, and how through the growth group leaders, how they will talk about how each member going at growing.
So the slide today has sort of 8 questions coming out of NCLS that kind of have some of those deep in word metrics that you could easily grab and easily just ask of your church, get a baseline and then ask every year. That's good. Okay.
Question for Ben, I think, but anyone. As you start thinking
we have now, brother.
You talk about a low bar for leaders. I wonder, you've then got the next sort of level of, you call them community leaders and then network leaders. Do you have a bar for each level? Do you sort of, are you explicit about what that bar is? What is that low bar? And then do you compensate, I suppose, with, quite comprehensive material that you give the leaders because of to compensate for the low bar of skill or knowledge. Can I just ask that? Is that all right?
It's good. To the last one, yeah, we've tried to. So one of my gigs is, shared with a couple of other guys, but we take turns. One of us will write a package of studies. So a package which includes like a daily reading notes for the term. So church can pick up a little booklet each term, a little daily Bible, so 3 or 4 questions, just help you get into the passage. A growth group study, and then a training video, 10, 15, 20 minutes. The person who's written the study walking you through the passage and then walking you through the study. And so that is to try and help, give heaps of kind of scaffolding support for the person. So my hope is, there'll be leaders who will be, spending the time on the exegesis themselves, and some of them will write their own studies, and I think that's great. Some of them, the best leader will have a bad week when all they can do is hit print and walk into the room, and hopefully, and maybe they've listened to the video in the car on the way there or something. But I think I'm trying to remember the pieces of your question. I think people are different, and I think we've been talking about this as a team. What is the CL role description? And it might have different pieces to it. You know those spider web diagram things? And so I was trying to diagram the CL role. Like there's a coaching thing of you want to sit with a person, help them reflect. Like that's the main thing. If you've got this other competency to you, which is they're actually a really good facilitator, teacher, Bible study leader yourself, that really helps. It helps you see things and give helpful feedback. If you're a great Bible theology guy, that'll help. If you're a great administrator, that'll really help, because then I don't have to do all your admin for you. But it's really hard to get all those things in one person. If you're a really great relational discipler kind of person, that'll help a lot as well with the pastoral things that come up. But it's uncommon to get all those 5 things in one person. And so I just did this as an intellectual exercise of I mapped my different CLs around, and they all have different kind of profiles. And so it's how do I get you playing to your strengths? How do I help you with those other parts which ideally you'd be able to grow in? How do I can I relieve you of some parts so you don't have to feel the burden of it? That's enough for me. Is that... You've got a question, Jenny?
Hi. My question is really about raising up new growth group leaders, and with HBC's sort of Tuesday feed, everyone was going to want to join a growth group eventually. Steve, you had that problem of we didn't have enough community group leaders, so we had to kind of combine it. How are you? I mean, you've got that. Who's raising up? Who's doing the job of raising up these new leaders or these new groups? And even with Life on Life, after 3 years, are these people going to be the growth group leaders who are going to create? How do you multiply, basically? What do you guys do?
It's messy and it's slow and it's tricky, but to give you the picture, which is worked out fallibly, whatever. So we have an org chart, which kind of looks like that, but then the hope is that every group has an assistant leader and a leader in training. And so if you have all 3 leadership chairs filled in every group, which we don't, but that's aspirational. So one of the CL's jobs is, how are your leaders, how are they going personally, how are the people in the group going? This is me catching up with a CL as a network leader. And who's getting trained up in these different groups? Is there someone here we can find to get up into that chair? And so I'm trying to own as the network leader. Part of what we're doing is trying to build capacity, raise up leadership, people sharing that responsibility for discipleship. Cast a vision for that in the CL. The CL hopefully then is casting that vision in the group leader, in the groups themselves. And I think group leaders want to share, I think ideally, but often feel liberated by, oh yes, please, can someone help me? And the vision is, the hope is that becomes a training thing, not just a kind of hospital pass thing, but to share that vision of training, so that we're trying to have all those chairs filled. But then as soon as you get that, you need another 3 groups, and your chairs are empty then in term 2. So it's like the get in the wheel, keeping it spinning.
Once a term, we ask our growth group leaders, we'll do a survey on various things on how the group's going and stuff like that. One of the questions is, who are you raising up? Who are you training? Just to create the culture in every single group that the growth group leaders are identifying and training up. And then our growth group team leaders, or CLs, they then will take responsibility for tapping some of them on the shoulder after we've had fights with the other ministry teams that those people are in and all that kind of thing, to do some deliberate training to kind of prepare them and raise them up. But similar, yeah, very similar.
Yeah, so we agree with everything. In terms of life on life, a big part of the intention of it is to be raising up leaders, and so during it, people are discerning their gifts and how they're going to serve. But the real intention is that they're going to lead and multiply in some way, and that often is growth group leading.
One of the reasons that it was a difficulty at the start of this year is because the position was somewhat vacant last year for a period of time. And so I stepped into it in January, and when I was having conversations with people, for some of them it was the first time that they'd thought about, or anyone had tapped them on the shoulder, that this could be a possibility for 2026. And they'd already got an idea as to what their year would look like, and so it was far too late to ask them in January. And that would also mean that pulling them out of the group that they were a part of, which they were likely a core member in, so that became too difficult. So for this year, my plan is to start those conversations now with people and invite them, along with if they're identified with their leaders, and potentially getting opportunities to have a go in the groups that they're a part of now, but also invite them. We do a termly huddle with all of our community group leaders, which includes training, and so inviting them to the next two at the start of term 3 and 4.
Just on measuring maturity and with regards to the survey, so it's something new that we're going to be introducing across church. We've just introduced a survey for our leaders, and we've communicated to them that we'll be doing it termly. Surveys can feel like quite an odd thing to do and land uncomfortably. I think any tips or advice from any of you that have done that on how to actually encourage engagement and honesty and vulnerability church-wide, but also from our leaders, because it can be quite exposing.
Yeah, I think there's truth and then there's persuasive truth. And I think the thing that we found in terms of helping people report to us, like, you know, use all that sexy language of surveys, reporting, all those things, has been love and care. And to try and help people see how this does help us shepherd the whole flock. So they're the kind of key things about loving, family, care. We want to make sure everyone is loved and cared for. We want to make sure you are supported as a leader. And so then we'll explain how those questions will help us do those things. Yep.
Just practically with our AGM, we do electronic voting, and we take the opportunity to do a survey as part of that. So we've got yearly survey.
In the past, Vine Church did it during one of the Sunday services. You'll have to talk to those who organised that as to how that went. And also the type of questions were the ones that would encourage people, this is what Christian maturity might look like. So it was a positive sense. And maybe an example could be, I invited someone to church in the last 12 months and they came, or something like that.